Welcome to the League of Women Voters and City Club of Central Oregon 2022 Primary Candidate Forums, two organizations that are passionately nonpartisan. I'm Carol Leshy, President of the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County. Our candidate forums are conducted according to League of Women Voter guidelines. All candidates who have filed in their race are invited to participate. In the interest of fairness, we do not let an RSVP of regrets cancel a forum. We hope you enjoyed this forum and come away with knowledge about the issues that are so important in today's society. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Please use your voice and vote. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for taking the time to learn more about the candidates running to represent you. My name is Kim Gallant, and I am the Executive Director at the City Club of Central Oregon. If you'd like to learn more about tonight's forum or any of our upcoming forums, please visit us at cityclubco.org. At City Club, we are working to build a conscious and civic-minded community that results in responsible civic engagement. We do this through community forums and utilizing the tools of civility to promote productive and safe conversation. You can learn more at cityclubco.org.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Matt McDonald with Central Oregon Daily News. I'm both the news director here, and occasionally you'll find me popping up on air. We are your local ABC and CBS television stations based here in Bend, Oregon, but do our best to cover as much of rural Eastern Oregon as we possibly can. I'm very honored here to be your moderator for this Congressional District 2 Primary Republican Candidate Forum. Remember, it is your responsibility to vote. It is all of our responsibilities to vote. Congressional District 2 is quite simply the largest district in the state, covers roughly 2/3 of Oregon, one of the largest counties in all of America, I believe the 7th largest. We were just discussing this before this debate started. It includes all of Baker, Crook, Gilliam, Grant, Harney, Jackson, Josephine, Klamath, Lake, Malheur, Morrow, Sherman, Umatilla, Union, Wallowa, Wasco, and Wheeler counties. It also includes portions of Clackamas, Curry, Deschutes, Douglas, Jefferson, and Multnomah counties. So in short, if you want to represent this district, you better be ready to hit the road because there's a lot of territory to cover. The term for the seat is 2 years. Oregon actually gained a congressional seat from the 2020 census. And because of that redistricting, Congressional District 2's boundaries have changed slightly. We do have that new district here, and more on that later. There are 3 candidates right now vying for the Congressional District 2 Republican primary nomination. They are Katherine Gallant. We're very happy to have you here with us this afternoon, Ms. Gallant. Mark Cavener, thank you for being here as well. And our incumbent, Cliff Bentz. Now I want to note, candidate Bentz and his representatives were contacted numerous times by representatives from the League of Women Voters. We're very disappointed at this point. They have chosen not to respond to our request to participate in the forum today. Their Zoom invite was turned off as soon as we started this forum, so he will not be able to join unless he was here before we began. The person who wins this Republican primary election will run against the Democrat candidate in the general election this fall. We're going to start today with some opening statements from both of the candidates. And I actually have closed my spreadsheet, but I understand we're just going to bounce back and forth between the two. Each candidate has 1 minute for opening statements. We're going to follow that with questions. You'll have 90 seconds to answer those questions. We do have a timer on screen. Please keep track of that timer. I am a little bit stricter than most moderators, and I will ask you to wrap up. And if you continue to go on, I will actually ask our technical side of this debate to mute your mic so we can move on. That is simply to be fair to everyone and make sure everyone is being held to the same standard so that they can answer their questions appropriately. At the very end of this, we are going to have 2 minutes for closing statements. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Opening statement, 60 seconds to you. Mark Cavener, if you would like to begin.
Yeah, again, my name is Mark Cavener. Proud to be running in the 2nd District of Oregon. And I grew up in Klamath Falls, as did now 7th generation was born about a decade ago, all farming since the homesteader days. And this is personal to me, lots been going on here. And I joined the Army when I was 17 years old, Army National Guard unit, and learned a lot about foreign policy first there and the New World Order. And since then, I started several great successful businesses with world leaders, business leaders that run a lot of what is popular and the biggest companies today, really. And I want to bring that leadership that I offered to those who sat on my board for years, and bring that to the House here and have some accountability.
All right, Mr. Cavener, you're actually extended over 1 minute. If I can cut you off there, I want to give Ms. Gallant a chance. Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Gallant, we have 1 minute for you.
Okay, well, I first want to thank the League of Women Voters and City Club. I've been writing about politics for many years, but I've never seen this country this bad. And I've fought off the urge to run for office. But here I am. And never felt stronger about anything I've ever done. The truth is, since I've been writing for years, no one has to guess where I stand. I've never wavered in my belief that freedom to grow intellectually and the security of our nation is the greatest gift we can give our children. Because I am a mother, I'm no longer leaving it up to the politicians to clean up Washington. Instead, I am running for U.S. Congress.
All right, Ms. Gallant, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our questions. I'll remind each candidate you will have 90 seconds, so an additional 30 from your opening statements. That timer is there on your screen to reference. The League of Women Voters gave me the order that we're going to go in, and we're going to be bouncing back and forth between the candidates for who gets to start. So, Ms. Gallant, we'll start with you. The first question, why should the voters select you over the other candidates running for Congressional District Seat 2?
Well, I would definitely start with the fact that I'm so against polished politicians. I've never seen myself, in spite of all my writings, I have never seen myself as a professional politician. I've seen myself as a victim of what they've done to our country. And so why vote for me? I have credits and accomplishments, but I was taught a long time ago, you don't tell somebody who you are, you show them. And I want to show Washington that we're not going to take it anymore.
All right, Mr. Cavener, the same question to you. I will repeat it. You'll have 90 seconds to answer. Why should voters select you over the other candidates running for the Congressional District 2 seat?
Because I'm already been representing them. I've already been standing up for the rights. And like Catherine said, you don't talk about it, you do it. You show people. And the first week of the shutdowns here in Oregon, somebody in the grocery store tried to put a mask on my face. I went right to the CFO of the company and I told him what was going to happen the next time somebody did that in a store. And we negotiated. And at the end of it, he agreed he'd probably settle out of court for $100,000. I told him, hold the presses. I'm not going to file anything if you promise to make some changes across every store. And he did. And I've been shopping there without a mask coming on 2 years now. And it worked. Same thing with the DMV. I went in there, they tried to kick me out because I have a religious belief that I can't wear a mask. It's deeply held. I called 911 to report a crime. Sheriff showed up. They agreed with me. A month ago, criminal charges were filed against the Oregon DMV for religious discrimination. One of the many ways I've been fighting for our rights. here in
And
Oregon.
Mr. Cavener, that concludes your time there for question one. You do start with question two, and it's a good segue in that you talked about rights, and this one is specifically to do with voting rights. What role, if any, should the federal government have in regulating the electoral processes of the states so that the voting rights are secure for everyone? 90 seconds to you, sir.
Well, in the way they already are, the National Voters Registration Act, on a federal level, that applies to everybody. And it's a thing that does not need to be questioned whether or not, an audit like, oh, was there election fraud? Of course there was, but the fact remains that all of our counties, show me the ones that have cleaned their voter rolls. Klamath County cleaned one voter off the rolls in 4 years. Lane County cleaned 2 people off the voter rolls in that many years. Most 14 of the counties in the district we're running for had 5 or fewer voters cleaned off the voter rolls. And while the Constitution says that the states shall dictate the time, place, and manner of this, that doesn't mean that the Secretary of State gets to push it off onto the counties who aren't cleaning the voter rolls. So if we have 9,000 new voters registered just for the 2020 election in Klamath, in a population about, it was always 17,000 to 20,000, let's say, that's a problem. We can't have clear and clean elections when this is happening. It's not possible.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cavener. Ms. Gallant, I'll move on to you. What role, if any, should the federal government have in regulating the electoral processes of the state so that voting rights are secure?
I'll make this sweet and simple. The Constitution spells out specifically that it's the legislators of each state that determine the election laws. And if you hand everything over to the government, it is, I would agree with Mark, it is going to be a great contention and there will be enormous voter fraud. We have to, every state is unique. It has a unique population. It has a unique culture and way of thinking. Only each state can determine what our election laws should be. Sweet and simple.
All right, Ms. Gallant, thank you very much. We will begin with you for our next question, question number 3. This has to do with the trying times we've all faced over the last 2 years. What do you see as the proper role of the U.S. Congress in addressing pandemics?
Could you repeat that one more time?
I certainly will, and you'll have 90 seconds to answer. What do you see as the proper role of the U.S. Congress in addressing pandemics?
Pandemics. Okay. So this past year, we experienced mandates. We experienced lockdowns. We experienced so many things that later were determined not to really functionally slow the pandemic down. They were not efficient. And because you have rural populations and then you have urban populations, again, everything is determined by specifically the area you're dealing with. So when you ask about what the federal government can do, I stay out of our business. Just we can't expect the federal government to understand who we are, where we are. And so far, what we have seen the federal government do has not been appropriate for the pandemic.
All right, Mr. Cavener, the same question to you. I will repeat it, 90 seconds. What do you see as the proper role of the U.S. Congress in addressing pandemics?
The same role they have in everything, which is only to support the rights of the people that are protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. It doesn't matter if it's a pandemic, a plandemic, an epidemic, or taxes or anything. The sole role of our government is to protect those rights. And they need to stay out of things like the pandemic. There was no pandemic, okay? It was fake. When you look at the numbers and the definition of pandemic, it was not. I experienced this. I worked on a project in Swaziland, South Africa, with the HIV epidemic. And I worked with people and met an entire population, a third of them had HIV AIDS. But the way they remember HIV AIDS was something like what we've experienced here. It was COVID 81. A bunch of Westerners came in, gave them a bunch of medicine to protect them from this dangerous disease. Next thing they know, a third of the population has HIV AIDS. Just a coincidence.
All right, Mr. Cavener, appreciate your time. I do want to make one point of clarification since it was referenced earlier as far as mandates that were put in place. For the bulk of the mandates that were put in place here in Oregon, those were issued by the state and the governor's office specifically, not the federal government. Federal government mandates to transportation certainly apply to Oregonians, but for instance, mass or the side of crowd gatherings, those were issued by the state. So just a point of clarification there. We'll move on now. Mr. Cavener, first, this question to you first. There are over 1 million non-affiliated voters in Oregon. Do you support open primaries in which all of Oregon registered voters could vote in the primary election?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. There's some advantages, I suppose, either way, but I think the people that are seeking representation, like some of them are middle of the road. Not everybody wants to join a major party, and I know a lot of really great candidates running as non-affiliated candidates too, and that's something that I think is sort of unfair, how a lot of the candidates that are not affiliated with a party get the short end of the stick, and not enough people get to weigh in the primaries. And by the time the general election comes along, you're just left with what everybody else voted for, right? And if you weren't a registered Democrat or a registered Republican, well, oh well, you know. And it should be free and fair. The most important area of law that addresses this is equal protection under the law. And so it should be that way across the board with voting too, not just criminal law and civil law, but certainly with voting. We need to find more ways to really equalize how voters are treated.
All right, Ms. Gallant, the same question to you. I will repeat it. There are over 1 million non-affiliated voters in Oregon. Do you support open primaries in which all of Oregon registered voters could vote in the primary election?
So that's like a two-edged sword. I know the argument against it is that one party might deliberately vote in a lesser candidate, less popular candidate, and the same vice versa with the other party. So then you don't really get qualified candidates running. But I think given the climate of what we have here, that it might be appropriate at this point. I also wanted to add that mandates have been given to the military and also healthcare workers that have actually affected every state.
Thank you for that clarification, actually. It's good clarification. All right, the next question, we'll start with you, Ms. Gallant. What specific legislation would you support, if any, to reduce gun violence in this country?
None. None. It's
that
not, it's, okay, okay, I'll say.
You can stick with none. I don't want to put any words in your mouth. If you would like to stop that, I can move on.
If you think that's going to stop gun violence, you're going to be disappointed. We have to do more with our families. We have to do more with rearing our children. We have to do more about developing a culture that is conducive to less crime. And I could go on for an hour about all of those things. I have written about them. I have produced documentaries on homelessness and incarceration. Hours and hours I could talk on this subject, but guns aren't the problem. Our culture is the problem.
All right, Mr. Cavener, once again, I'll repeat that question. What specific legislation would you support, if any, to reduce gun violence in this country?
Maybe a law that requires everybody to bear an arm. You know, I think if everybody had them, there would probably be very little gun violence. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of legislation that even tries to whisper at controlling guns. To control violence is good luck with that. There's nearly 8 billion people in the world, and a bunch of congressmen aren't going to make a law that's going to do anything about human nature per se, and don't go anywhere near my gun rights. So it's there, you know, there's not a lot we can do as legislators to fix that problem. And most of them want to involve guns or magazines or anything, but 2A shall not be infringed. That's very clear. And, you know, that goes with all the rest of our rights too. You know, it's not up for debate. And things that try to sound like they're trying to fix a problem, end gun violence, well, they all tend to want to take away guns to do that. That's not the solution. Never will be. You can't have my guns. You can't have my gun rights, period.
All right, Mr. Cavener, thank you. The next question, we will begin with you. And I think it's safe to say that some people feel a disconnect with Congress, with what happens in Washington, with their own personal representation. And part of that disconnect at times can be linked back to financial disparities or how they feel about them. 59 members of Congress have violated a law designed to stop insider trading and prevent conflicts of interest. Should members of Congress be prohibited from trading stock while in office? 90 seconds to you, Mr. Cavener.
Yes, it creates a conflict. And I don't think you should do that. I'm not about restricting people's ability to invest, citizens, but if you're representing your country and getting rich off of your insider baseball, like Cliff Bentz, why did Bentz Solutions LLC get paid off from the Uranium One money in the Malheur County land grab, in the Harney County land grab, and the shutdown of our waters to our farmers? You thought it was about water, did you? No, I think that's criminal. I think Cliff Bentz should be investigated for monies he's received, like Soros companies, Barrick Gold Incorporated and Calico Resources. All of them got paid, like Bentz Solutions LLC, for the Uranium One deal. What do you think it was about? And sorry, I'm getting so excited about this, but it's not just about penny stocks here. You have these clowns doing this with our minerals, our land, our resources, taking money off of that too. And that's the worst kind of insider trading, because that is things that he did specifically to get our uranium to China and to get our uranium to Russia. Cliff Bentz did that. And I got your number, Cliff.
Mr. Cavener, thank you. Ms. Gallant, the same question. I'll repeat it a little shorter, but should members of Congress be prohibited from trading stocks while in office?
Well, the very best example is Pelosi. Oh my gosh, this woman has become independently wealthy. It's a shame when you see her own district has fallen into hard times with homelessness and drugs, and she's done nothing. But what she has done is she has been an insider trader and made herself millions. And I just want to add to what Mark is saying. It's kind of interesting that I also read Cliff Bentz, his voter. In his voting, he voted to, and this means something, he voted for Pelosi's Commission 6, January 6th Commission. And I am telling you, if you are a Republican, you have no business doing that. So I side with Mark on everything he said about Cliff Bentz. He is not our candidate, and we should tell rhinos to go home. We have enough trouble in Washington.
Ms. Gallant, thank you. I do want to actually follow up real quickly. Just very yes or no, though, you've given examples of concerns you had. Should members of Congress be prohibited from trading stocks, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question goes to you. What changes, if any, to immigration law would you want to pursue and why? You have 90 seconds.
Well, I could sum it up with what Trump had, stay in Mexico, finish the wall. As a mother, I am so concerned that what has happened is this flow of immigrants just coming across to the tune last year of about 1.5 million, and every day thousands flood the border. We will not know what a safe neighborhood is for our children and our grandchildren. So I would definitely go back to the Trump era, finish the wall, and a person has to go through the process in order to cross that border and become a citizen of this country.
Ms. Gallant, thank you. Mr. Cavener, what changes, if any, to immigration law would you want to pursue and why?
Well, the best thing I could do about it right now is to get Cliff Bentz out of there, who voted 209 votes with AOC from New York. The most far left, most open border votes in our Congress, he voted with 37% of the time, including the Saudi Dissident Protection Act. Like Catherine said, he votes to lock up veterans and patriots for going to a Trump rally on January 6th, but he protects Saudi dissidents. He votes for this Farmland Modernization Act that is a part of the open borders policy. And all these shiny things that sound good, Cliff Bentz voted for most of these. The best things that we can do to fix is, like Catherine said, finish the wall, go to Trump era policies on this, and vote out all the rhinos. The dirty 35 House Republicans that voted with the January 6th Commission are the same ones, it turns out, that have voted for all these open border policies. Out of 559 votes, those dirty 35, they need to go.
All right, Mr. Cavener, the next question to you. If elected to Congress, what would be your top 3 priorities and how would you go about getting them done? Not always easy to get things done in DC.
Top 3 priorities right off the bat is getting the families out of our government, not voting for anything else that started with Joe Biden in 1994. Don't forget, it was Joe Biden's crime bill that decimated the African American community. And then he slid in the unconstitutional VAWA Act. I would never vote to keep that thing going. I would never vote to keep the NDAA going. I would never vote to keep the Patriot Act going, as it sounds. All these nice sounding things are unconstitutional. They're taking away our rights, not protecting them. And first and foremost, we got to just stop with that. These things keep getting voted and voted by both parties. How is it that the brainchild Joe Biden, in this crime bill in the VAWA, gets to live another year and another year and another year? So that would be my first thing, is saying no to all of that. And to get myself into a committee, good luck with that. You got to pay your way into that stuff. But to get myself in a position where I can form a commission to go after those responsible for taking away our rights with the pandemic, with the January 6th commission,
All
right?
Mr. Gaffney, your 90 seconds. Your 90 seconds.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just trying to keep it fair here. So, Ms. Gallant, if you could answer the same question, if elected to Congress, what would be your top 3 priorities and how would you go about getting them done?
Inflation, inflation, inflation. Now, this is easy. This is one of the easiest things that we can do. We better start pumping gas again. We better start pumping oil again. We better open up our pipelines. And we better start allowing leases and permits for our companies, our oil companies, to start producing. This is insane. What we've been doing for the past year is all that is just said. They deliberately do not want us to pump oil in this country, which has caused mass inflation, high prices at the gas pump. Everything that needs to be transported is now inflated because it takes $5, $6 to fill 1 gallon of gas in a truck. So what I would do is to get the gas moving again in this country. And that is the biggest and most major thing I would be working on.
All right, Ms. Gallant, thank you. The next question goes to you. I'm going to preface this one a little specifically because of the district that you are both running to represent. Very large, very rural, lots of farms, lots of ranches in this area. Regardless of how you feel about what is happening with the climate, there's no one can doubt that there is less water than there was in years past. How can the federal government mitigate the effects of climate change that are already occurring? Wildfires, flooding, heat domes, that drought I just mentioned, and more severe storms. 90 seconds to you.
Well, the one that I'm most familiar with is the forest. That, like any garden, you have to go in and you have to do controlled burns and you have to get rid of the undergrowth. We need to take care of our forests. We need less regulation and we need more input from our communities because we are the people that know what we need to do. We've been farming this land. We have been working our forests. And so we know as the people, but government, Bureau of Land Management, they all seem to have answers that do not work. Simply, they don't work. So I would say that those are just a few things that we could do.
All right, Mr. Cavener, how can the federal government mitigate the effects of climate change that are already occurring, such as wildfires, flooding, heat domes, drought, and more severe storms?
It cannot mitigate anything like that on that big of a scale. And it's just another way to steal our money. It's a bunch of hooey. And when 40,000 people got burned out of their homes in Phoenix, Oregon, and Talent, Oregon, it was not the result of wildfires at all. How about we investigate the 12 Antifa members that were arrested for arson that week? And what happened to them? They got let go. 12 people were murdered. And it wasn't a wildfire. There wasn't a single lightning strike that week. It was murder. I personally talked to a firefighter that found a timed explosive device involved with that. And we think that all these wildfires of the last 2 years were due to climate change. It's a bunch of BS. It was a controlled burn, just like the downtown Portland of mostly peaceful protests. No, people were paid to tear down our cities, to burn down our cities, and it's not climate change doing it. And the ones that are involved within our government are trying to clear us out of our lands and buy it up and get our resources. Same storybook.
All right, Mr. Cavener, thank you. I do want to follow up on something you said. 40,000 people burned out of their homes in Phoenix and Talent. Phoenix and Talent, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, has a population combined of around 11,000 people. Were you trying to reference broader fires across the state of Oregon or specifically Phoenix and Talent?
I was referring to about the only article that came out during that time that made its way anywhere. I wasn't seeing it in the mainstream media, and that was a terrible, terrible thing that happened. There's a lot of people that lost their homes in that area of the world. And again, there was no forest fires around there. All the forest around those two cities were untouched, only the houses. It was a burn. Regardless of the total numbers, 12 people were murdered. They lost their lives.
I appreciate the clarification. Just wanted to make clear there's about 11,000 in those two cities combined. Next question, we'll begin with you. You both have, you both would be jumping into an arena that I think a lot of people would say is somewhat dysfunctional here in Washington, D.C. What steps would you take to fix the dysfunctional partisan divide that we see in government?
The partisan divide. Well, again, this is personal to me because it's in my own family. And I feel the same way about it. These are not our enemies. It's not about the Democrats versus Republicans. It's about good versus evil. This is a spiritual battle we're in right now. If you can't see that, well, here you go. They shut down the whole world, right? And the narrative that goes between me and my brother, for example, is very much mirrored in the macrocosm of little Portland up there and Salem dictating what the rest of the state should do. And it's tough. I see that divide, but I've got a lot of friends that are liberals. Most of my friends are conservatives, but I've got a lot of them. I worked in the entertainment industry a long time, and I worked with a lot of them before they realized I was a conservative. They didn't care. I always worked with them on projects that were for the benefit of the greater good. Always. I haven't made a penny off of doing anything that wasn't for the public benefit since 2006. And I'm going to bring that into Congress best I can.
Mr. Cavener, thank you. Ms. Gallant, what steps would you take to fix the dysfunctional partisan divide we sometimes see in government?
I truly wonder if that is even a possibility. It's so strong. There are motivating factors that I think the left side wants so badly to promote, and the right side is standing for freedom, is standing for, well, it's the old story. You either have security or you have freedom. And I don't know that there can ever be a mesh. I don't know that is even possible because you have to look at the motivating factors. And there is such a huge divide. So, what would I do? I don't know. I don't think you can. I don't think anybody can fix that. I really don't. I think time and progression may fix that.
All right, Ms. Gallant, thank you. We'll start with you here for our next question. What should Congress, not the states, but Congress do to address the large number of homeless people in the United States?
I'm ready for you. I don't know if you can see that, but I wrote that back in 2015. I owned 8 rentals here in Oregon. And I spent $10,000 getting my last tenant out of a house that she trashed it. It is so unfair what landlords, mom and pops who have mortgages on these rentals, how they get treated, how the state legislature has treated the landlords of this state. So if you want to talk about homelessness, you have to start from where we live, the laws that govern the. Nobody wants to come to Oregon and rent out their home. There's nothing to protect them. And about homelessness really starts with tell you that it's drug fuel, and we have to fix that before we can fix this.
All right, Mr. Cavener, what should Congress specifically do to address the large number of homeless people in the United States?
Well, to focus in on homelessness with Congress, all Congress can do about that is to make laws about it, right? And I don't think there's a lot we can do. How we can do to make our economy better. There's plenty that we can to do to get rid of the riffraff and quit wasting our money and spend our energy on improving our economy and closing our borders, not allowing the homeless people. It used to be most of them were veterans, right? Nowadays, we have so many people flooding our borders. They're not being checked for their COVID or not when they come on here, right? And where is homeless coming from? So I think if we really want to do something, let's do more about protecting our veterans and not letting them become homeless. Get our jobs back on, get this clown Biden out of office. He's not the duly elected president. He did not get 81 million votes. Come on, that's a joke. And to, build the wall. Don't let any more people come into our country that don't have employment, that don't have income, that are just going to be a burden on your taxpayer dollars.
Because you just brought it up, I'm actually going to skip ahead a question because I want to make sure we get this one in before we run out of time. So I've got to take some notes to make sure I'm fair to everyone. Mr. Cavener, we'll begin with you. You don't have to take your full 90 seconds. You can't answer this yes or no, but it is your 90 seconds, so use it how you would like. Do you believe that Joe Biden is the duly elected president of the United States?
No. And I did this experiment in 2020. And it's a long story, but at one time I had a charitable organization with the director of engineering for Google was on my board. the director of advertising for Discovery Channel, worldwide partner group director for Microsoft, Credit Suisse, like all the big tech, big pharma, big oil guys. And one of them was on the board with Paul Allen Foundation, Family Foundation, as well as with Vulcan when they funded 40 million for Citel, the election software that goes into a lot of the Dominion machines. I've never lived in Arizona, but I ran an election fraud experiment because I knew there would be massive amounts of election fraud in the Arizona specifically. And I found it. I started sending evidence of election fraud to Mark Fincham in March of 2020. I was denied voter walking papers, right, for my district there. That was voter fraud. 60 days because of COVID, I didn't get my papers. So it's a big problem. And I've started EIO.live for those that want to see some of the work I'm doing for Election Integrity Education Institute of Oregon.
Okay,
and that's a company I've started to work on this issue.
Okay, thank you. I want to give Ms. Gallant her time on this question as well. Do you believe that Joe Biden is the duly elected president of the United States?
I absolutely do not believe, for multiple reasons, that he was elected. And I would concur with Mark that 81 million votes, I don't think so. I had a home in Arizona. Everywhere you went, the last month of the election, 50,000 people showed up at his rallies everywhere. He had about 5 rallies, I believe. Thousands of people. Biden shows up with Harris and nobody showed up. And then you want to tell us that Biden won Arizona when pigs can fly. That's my take on that. No way. No way.
Okay, we are going to begin with you, Ms. Gallant. We are running short on time, so this may, I'm not sure if this is going to be our last question or not. I'm going to try to skip ahead and get some of the ones I think we would most want to get to. If elected, would you commit to holding public town halls on a regular basis in your district? We've already mentioned it is a very, very large district to cover.
Yes. And you could do that virtually as well. I know they did it like over the radio at one time. Who was, maybe you can refresh my memory, who was before Bentz? Who was the...
Congressman Greg Walden.
Greg Walden, he did that. He held town halls, but over the radio. And I absolutely believe in it, because how can you stay in touch with the percent? How do you determine what it is that they are experiencing or their thoughts if you don't stay in touch? So yes, yes.
All right, Mr. Cavener, same question to you. If elected, would you commit to holding public town halls on a regular basis in your district?
Yeah, not much would change. I do that right now as every part of, every week we have a meeting for People's Rights Group. We talk to each other about all these things. Since I've been running for Congress, it's turning into town hall meetings, and everywhere I go, not just campaigning, but that's something I'm used to doing. Every Friday, I have a show that I do on Patriot Soapbox on Friday nights. And I've been doing that since about December. I'm going to continue that. When I get into the House, I'll be doing weekly updates and talking about the inside kind of stuff, things that I'm probably don't want me to talk about. I'm going to be live streaming from inside the the House and keeping people informed. I think it should be an open and transparent campaign, like it already is. And on that note, my campaign is the first in history of politics to be operated by a benefit corporation candidate company. So Cavener for Congress LLC is the only benefit corporation that is running a campaign in America right now. So I'll be doing that along with my, my mandated, how it is mandated in that benefit corporation,
Right,
which
Mr.
is
Cavener,
transparency. And
we have time for one last question, and I am going to start with you. And I will admit I'm asking this one somewhat for selfish reasons, and it's because I believe so strongly in people participating in the process and making sure that their voices are heard when they're running for office. So, Mr. Cavener, to you, if elected, will you commit to participating in a forum or debate with any future opponent that you would face?
Absolutely, yes. Especially the League of Women Voters.
They have been very good partners throughout the years in hosting these forums. Thank you for your brevity. Actually, I appreciate it. Ms. Gallant, if elected, will you commit to participating in a forum or debate with any of your opponents?
Absolutely.
And certainly you guys have both shown up today and made your points very clearly. I do appreciate it greatly. We have reached that point where we have 2 minutes here for closing statements. And I'm going to give you the full 2 minutes. We've got, good, the timer has changed to 1:20 here, 120 seconds here on our screen. Ms. Gallant, we'll begin with you. 2 minutes for your closing statement to the voters.
So I had this all planned out, and I had a nice little typed up response for my 2 minutes. But after doing the forum, there are a lot of things that I don't think God touched on. And one of the things that I would say is that we just determined that I was not in the voter pamphlet. And I just want to comment that I was never approached by the Secretary of State or asked to fill out anything different than what I initially was asked to fill out. So I don't know what happened there. But I want to talk about homelessness. I want to talk about incarceration. And I want to talk about drugs that are in our community. And I think if I were to contribute anything to Congress, it's vast knowledge of what we can do with our homelessness. I'm into being more humane about what is going on in our streets and how do we approach it. Because so far, I haven't seen one intelligent program that has produced good results. And my goal, if I hit Congress, aside from getting our economy back, is to get that mess straightened out. And it is a mess and it's growing. And as Mark had stated, it's only going to get worse because people are flooding across the border and they're bringing drugs. We have to do something about it.
All right, Ms. Gallant, thank you. Mr. Cavener, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
I'm really proud to be here, and I want to thank Catherine too. I never got a chance to talk to you, Catherine, but I did reach out and leave a message early on, and thank you then for running, and I want to thank you now. Thanks for putting your name in the race, and I'm glad it's the two of us against this clown. But anyway, thank you for that. And I just want to say, like I started out with, I grew up in Klamath Basin, and settled that. And I had no idea. I thought I would be a music producer my whole life. And I thought I'd be an Army Ranger. And And when I started a series of nonprofit organizations that were benefiting others, one was the Washington Domestic Violence Commission, one was Oasis Entertainment, one was the first benefit corporation film production company that secured our first project was $100 million budget film. I don't know how I infiltrated so much of the deep state at such a high level, but God put me on this path and I feel led by God. I'm not afraid to say the name of Jesus Christ. And I think now more than ever, that's really needed because it is our religious freedoms that we need to protect more than anything. And it's, I've got a habit of standing up for all of us. I've been doing this a long time. I've been representing people sometimes in courts, even though I'm not a lawyer. I've helped dozens of people get their children back, stolen by the government. And I'm here to protect your rights and my rights. And I've done it more than anybody you've ever met. And I've been pretty quiet about it. And had I been more of a loudmouth, maybe people would know all the things I've already done,
Mr.
protecting
Katherner,
our rights. But
Mr. Katherner, thank you very much.
please vote for me.
I actually want to end tonight by this evening by thanking both of you for being here. It is greatly appreciated that you came to this forum, that you allowed for a public space for your voters to hear from you directly before they make their decision. So to Mr. Cavener, to Mr. Gallant, a thank you. And also, in case somebody joined this forum late, candidate Bentz and his representatives were contacted numerous times by the League of Women Voters to join once this forum started. They had not responded by the time this forum started, and hence did not join it. So again, thank you to both of you for participating in the League of Women Voter of Deschutes County and City Club of Central Oregon's Republican Primary Candidate Forum for Congressional District 2. Your voice is your vote. Make sure you get your ballots in by May 17th so your voice can be heard. For more information about the candidates in the 2022 primaries, please check out vote411.org. Great resource. Again, I'm Matt McDonald, the news director and occasional anchor here at Central Oregon Daily News, your ABC and CBS in Central Oregon. We greatly appreciate those of you that have chosen to watch us, and we do our very best to get as involved as possible and host these very fair and open discussions so that you can hear from folks before you make that important decision on May 17th. It has certainly been my pleasure and my honor to moderate this forum, the Republican primary for Congressional District 2. Thank you all so much.